You are now listening to the NFT Quarterback Podcast with your host, the man, the myth, the legend, Ricky Van Winkle.
Hello, and welcome to the NFT Quarterback Podcast. I am your host, Ricky Van Winkle. Today in the first episode, we're going to be looking at potential big moments coming up in the NFL 2022-2023 season. Who are players that could break out and potentially find some value in the NFT moments marketplace? Of course, our main marketplace that we're going to be looking at or referencing is going to be NFL All Day. They have all the moments over there, NFL moments, historic moments, all that good stuff. And right now, the moments that we're going to be talking about haven't happened yet. So we're going to be speculating and predicting and just kind of going over what could happen that could develop and could become a big moment. Who are the players who right now maybe don't have value but could easily build value in this upcoming season? Who are the teams that have a good roster set up, a good amount of talent, which will allow certain players to grow on previous success? Which players have already reached their ceiling, are on a downtrend? These are the topics we're going to be really discussing, first of all, in today's episode, but we could also get into a larger, more general football scheme to think about divisional matchups and playoff races as the season goes along. So the first episode's more of a one-over because the season hasn't even started yet. So we're just going to really get into speculating, and as the season goes on, we'll talk more about the games, more about the performances, more about the storylines of the season. Right now, we're at the beginning. We've only had the preseason to go off of, and a general rule of thumb is the preseason doesn't matter. It's not an indicator for success in the regular season as far as a team goes or even as players go. Sure, it's a good warm-up for these guys, and a lot of the rookies and teams that are trying to cut rosters, they want to see who's going to happen, and you let these younger players get experience at the NFL level, get used to the speed of the game, get used to the professionalism of the game. All this kind of stuff is stuff you see in the preseason. It's not going to translate over. So more or less, we're going to be looking at performances from previous seasons to kind of gauge where people are value-wise relative to other players, relative to league trends, things of this nature. Before we get into all that, though, before we get into the first episode, I got to take some time and thank everybody who helped out with this podcast, who is helping out with this podcast. So first of all, special thanks, big thanks, enormous thank you to the Party Mansion brand, Party Goobs, and their creator, Eric White, for setting all this up. This would never have happened without him, and I cannot thank him enough. So we're going to go ahead and just send out that thanks right in the beginning of the program. Also, we need to give a special thanks to the sponsor for my time, that is RMT Books. They provided the equipment for today. They provided the studio for today. They're also doing the production of this and providing the music and everything like that. So special thanks to them. If you guys haven't heard of RMT Books, go ahead and go to rmtbooks.com. Check them out. They have a lot of programs over there for people looking to get into digital assets, looking to build infrastructure for social media systems. All right, now let's get into it. Storylines for week 1 of the NFL season. Biggest storyline from the big dogs who are out there inside the league every day, what they're talking about, what the NFL audience is kind of listening to right now is this whole Baker Mayfield storyline. Interesting because the Browns organization mortgaged their entire future so they could get a new quarterback. And I don't want to get into the allegations behind their new quarterback. Yes, he did get suspended for the first 11 games. Yes, you can question the moral reasoning of the Cleveland Browns organization. The number that they offer the new quarterback is ridiculous, but he's suspended, so he can't be relevant these first couple weeks, and especially can't be relevant in week 1. But who is relevant and what is relevant is that they kicked Baker Mayfield to the curb for this new guy, for this new quarterback. And they send him to the Carolina Panthers for a conditional 5th-round draft pick. It was supposed to be a quarterback competition in preseason, but I guarantee you the second that Baker Mayfield saw that the Cleveland Browns were going to be the first opponent for Carolina, there was no way he was losing that quarterback competition. And if we want to talk about Sam Darnold, there's really nothing to talk about. That's the chances that this guy's going to come up with some big moments are next to nothing, because if you look over the course of his career, there's really nothing to offer there of any value, of any significance, unless it's significant to be a disappointment. Now, Baker Mayfield has the opportunity in week 1 to go against his old team, the team who went through hell and high water to get somebody else, and they got rid of him. And there are real opportunities to build value here, to build upon previous value. But if you think about the value of Baker Mayfield as a player, it's got up and down. I mean, the guy wins the Cleveland Browns organization a playoff game, and then they get rid of him. But, he was also riddled with injuries, shoulder injuries, wasn't able to win a whole lot of games, or wasn't the best quarterback at times. But now he's got a fresh start, new opportunity, and especially here in week 1, the opportunity to prove himself. So where there's potential here is if Baker Mayfield throws 4 or 5 touchdowns, or has a rushing touchdown where he dives over the pile or something like that, or some crazy run where he's super motivated, and especially in the fourth quarter, if it comes down to a close game, then there's a lot of potential here because of the backstory for value on Baker Mayfield. Now, I just want to talk about this matchup a little bit because it's not the most interesting matchup in the bigger scheme of things. If we're talking about the NFL next season, it's leaning towards an AFC West, NFC West. Those games are going to be the most meaningful games because those are potentially the 2 best divisions in the league. And here talking about Carolina and Cleveland is it's not that interesting of a game at the moment based off last season. But the opportunity that Baker has here is really big, and I'm not rooting for him to win or to lose. I believe in him as a that he's going to be motivated, he's going to be fired up. But when you look at the Carolina Panthers roster, there's really nothing that makes your eyes pop out. There's nothing that gets you excited. There's nothing, there's no names, there's no players there that have really developed a reputation to where if you look at the depth chart, you'll notice it's something you just kind of breeze through. Baker's interesting, but it's just one guy. And then when you start to look at the Cleveland Browns, then you have Clowney as a defensive end. You have Myles Garrett as another defensive end. So they're going to be able to put pressure on Baker Mayfield. And, he has had the entire offseason to heal from his previous injury. He did play through the injury, so I don't think there's going to be a big mental block for him there. But it's the Cleveland Browns, along with their quarterback acquisition, did a lot of roster building through free agency over the last couple seasons. They have some good receivers. They have Amari Cooper over there. Of course, they lost Jarvis Landry, but Amari Cooper's over there. He has potential, but it's not a lot just based off of his performances in Dallas. He left Oakland with that was supposed to be his taking off point. He leaves Oakland, he goes to Dallas. He's supposed to be the man over there, or supposed to be able to develop into the man over there, but he never really did anything with it where it kind of knocked your socks off. So, yeah, the Cleveland Browns, and they have Jacoby Brissett under center, who he's a quarterback in the NFL. He's nothing to write home about, but he's there, and he can handle it. He's started before. He was supposed to be the man over in Indianapolis, but it just didn't pan out for him. So, 2 things you can look at here is it's just a defensive play from Cleveland, where they've invested a lot of their money, where they've really looked to improve on that side of the ball. And that against a Panthers roster which is being fueled off nothing more than the drive and determination of Baker Mayfield to win a game against his old team, it leaves me suspect to the ability of the Carolina Panthers to win. Because, one man's not going to carry a team, and Baker Mayfield isn't Tom Brady, and, it's tough to say. So this game is kind of just a throw them up and just pick them, but I can't tell you who's going to win. I'm just as confused as a lot of you guys out there. It's a really hard game to pick, but as far as NFL moments go, you're going to have Baker Mayfield and that backstory. So if he does something big in that game, you could justify a value in any kind of moments occurring in that game. But again, it is week 1. The rest of the roster around him doesn't really do anything for him. So that's something to watch out for. That's something that could be noteworthy. But as far as the matchup goes, as far as the grand scheme of things, as far as like Super Bowl contention, neither of these teams is really interesting in that aspect. But you do have opportunities there on the defensive side for Cleveland and on the quarterback side for Carolina. Next thing I want to get to is the game in Chicago. So you got the San Francisco 49ers going into Chicago to face the Bears. And here is really good potential for spikes in value. What I mean here is the quarterbacks for Chicago and San Francisco are both young guns. They're both new to the league. They both have a lot to prove. So their value right now is pretty much on the floor. It should be next to nothing. And anything they put out there will only be adding to a reputation or starting to build a reputation. So you definitely have an opportunity here to get in on the ground floor. If any moments come out from this week 1 matchup for Trey Lance or Justin Fields, it's an opportunity to get them while they're just starting their careers and hold on to that and see how the value grows based on the performances they can deliver over their careers. Interesting storyline here for the San Francisco team is that they just had Jimmy Garoppolo take them to the NFC Championship game last year. And in his presser after they lost to the Rams, he was saying how he loved the media, how he's so thankful for them, and he was really grateful for his time in San Francisco. So basically saying farewell, saying goodbye. And then after all that, the Niners try to get rid of him all off-season basically. And it starts with, Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson kind of setting the trade value for quarterbacks on the NFL trade market. And, after the Russell Wilson trade, the value for quarterbacks keep dropping and dropping. And especially like in Baker Mayfield's case, he had an injury, and Jimmy Garoppolo also had an injury. So they both have surgery in the offseason. And Baker Mayfield's situation was maybe a little bit more dire than Jimmy's, and the Niners couldn't really just find the value for Jimmy Garoppolo there. The thing is, Jimmy Garoppolo, even though people want to say bad things about him, he's not the best quarterback. Sure, he's not the best quarterback. Sure, he's not Aaron Rodgers. Sure, he's not Patrick Mahomes or people of that nature. But he wins. He wins games. He wins the Super Bowl. Now, I'd like to see, for an established quarterback, I'd like to see a Super Bowl win. But I put him in a class just below people like a Brad Johnson or a Joe Flacco, quarterbacks who aren't the best, but the teams around them were so good and the defenses were so good that they were able to win Super Bowls. So I kind of put him in a class a little bit below that. The guy's got skills. The guy can win games, and that's, at the end of the day, the most important thing. Now, the Niners, kind of similarly to the Browns, went ahead and mortgaged their future, not as extensively as the Browns, and not to the not at the price of moral disarray like the Browns did, but they go ahead and they mortgage their future to get a new quarterback coming in, this Trey Lance, who, like I said, right now has very little value because he hasn't proven anything. They go and get this guy, and they're like forcing him in, even though in this case I'd like to see the little guy hang on the bench for about another year or 2 years. I mean, look back at Aaron Rodgers. You got Brett Favre sitting in the driver's seat. Brett Favre having a great career, and Aaron Rodgers just sits on the bench and waits for Brett Favre to retire, which he almost does, and then he doesn't, and he does, and he doesn't, for a couple years. And he's just sitting there, and he's just learning and learning and learning. And then when he finally gets the opportunity, I'm not sure of the year right now, but I say year 2, year 3, he comes out, and, he's just a stud from day one. And that's kind of the thing I would like to see with the Trey Lance. Now, mind you, I'm not Kyle Shanahan. I'm not John Lynch over there making these decisions and seeing everything day to day. But the NFL is a difficult place, and it's a very difficult place for quarterbacks. And when you have a proven guy, I'd like to just stick with the proven guy. But, they spend a lot of money on Trey Lance. They spend a lot of draft picks, a lot of capital, a lot of assets on this guy. So they're going to get him out there and get their return on investment. And in that sense, it's a story. And Jimmy Garoppolo goes through and he takes a major pay cut. Of course, he has bonuses available if he's able to play. But he takes his major pay cut to ride the bench. And now we're going to just look and see, can Trey Lance step up? Now, here's your opportunity. If Trey Lance does step up and you're able to, once the moments come out, go ahead and purchase those, then you're going to have a big, big return on your investment. The value is just going to go up. His ceiling, we don't know what it is. He's more of an active player. He reminds me kind of like Colin Kaepernick as far as like mobility. They say he has arm strength. You got to prove it to me, man. You got to prove it to me. Don't come out here and talk a big game. Go and play a big game. I don't want to hear all this junk about what he could be. Show me. And now you have this thing too. You got Jimmy G on the bench. Let him rest up. Let him heal up. This guy, you say he's injury prone, but let him heal up on the bench. And then when his time comes, you know what you're going to get. You know you're going to win games. They were in the NFC Championship last year, and they're benching this dude. He was real close to Super Bowl. But if they think Trey Lance has the opportunity to be just that little bit better than Jimmy G and offer them that little bit of edge that they need in order to advance the Super Bowl and finally win the Super Bowl, then that's the decision they're going to make, and that's the decision they have made. So we'll see where that goes, and that's your opportunity right there. Justin Fields, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate because I believe he's talented, but the Chicago Bears organization really, you look back at Mitch Trubisky, just all the teams that these Chicago Bears put out there, they know how to play defense, but their offense is always just a step behind. It's always not quite good enough. So he's kind of stuck in that situation. Now, if he's able to turn that around, and if you can imagine the Chicago Bears finally having an offense that's mind-blowing, then that's a place to go. And Justin Fields right now, I see his value as low to lower. He got some games in last year and it wasn't that impressive, so he's kind of moving into that Zach Wilson area or the area that Sam Darnold just passed where it's just make or break. You got to prove it, man. They're only going to give you so many opportunities before they move on, especially in the NFL, which stands for not for long. Get in, get your work done, win games, get to the postseason, and hope your kicker doesn't double doink. Chicago has bad luck when it comes to football. Super Bowl, they played Indianapolis, run the opening kickoff back for a touchdown, and blow it. That's just kind of how it goes over there in Chicago. They had the 85 Bears, epic team, but since then, nothing to write home about. Again, this matchup is a little more interesting because you have an NFC West team in it. The 49ers, they're coming off the NFC Championship game where they played another NFC West team, the Rams, who went on to win the Super Bowl. And because of that, this game is more relevant than the game we spoke about earlier. This matchup, whether or not it's the most interesting matchup, I'm kind of expecting San Francisco to go ahead and just knock this one out, take care of business, and move on. That's what their goal needs to be if they're going to be a Super Bowl team. You go into Chicago, you take care of business, and you move on and forget about it. This should not be a challenge for them. But there's definitely potential there. If you're looking long-term, if you believe in the potential, if you believe in high ceilings for either one of these quarterbacks, there's something to look at there. Next thing we want to get into is Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. We're going to start looking, we just went over our NFC West team. We're going to hear a little into the AFC West. Just a quick update on the AFC West. If you guys haven't heard, if you've been living under a rock, if you've been living in Antarctica with no cable and no internet, do they even have cable anymore, or is that just me? No internet, no Wi-Fi, whatever the heck it's called. Then AFC West went bonkers on quarterbacks. You think Russell Wilson going over to Denver. Do note Russell Wilson will be playing Seattle in week 1. So that's another interesting thing. But right now we're talking about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. So you got Russell Wilson coming over. You have Carr over in Las Vegas, who he's good, but he's another one of those guys. He has never proved it in the postseason. The one year the Raiders were going to go and make had the opportunity to make a postseason push, he breaks his leg. And then they lose to the Texans in the first round. So, this guy, his value is kind of stagnant. You're going to get, consistent play in the regular season, and then, he's got to win a playoff game. He has to win a playoff game. If you believe that Carr is going to win a playoff game this year, I would take the value right now for Carr, because he can only go up based off postseason performance. Now, Russell Wilson, on the other hand, over in Denver, he's more on a downtrend. He won that Super Bowl 2013, but that's kind of an Aaron Rodgers story. Okay, except he's had worse luck than Aaron Rodgers, because he doesn't have any MVP awards. Seattle always gets off to a good start, kind of stumbles. Then we did Denver, we did Las Vegas, and then we go over to the Los Angeles Chargers, who made a good decision in the draft. They got Herbert, and Herbert turns out to be an absolute boss. He's got a cannon for an arm. As far as his play goes, you could place him above Carr from Las Vegas. As far as long-term success, he's not in the same league as Carr, but I would kind of put him second or third in that division as far as quarterback play goes. He's good. He's really good. Also, though, do note that his ceiling and his actual potential is going to come also with postseason play. So, he's got room to grow up, and if he starts stacking MVPs, which he's completely capable of doing, then you also have potential there. So if you're looking to get in on Justin Herbert, you have already moments available to you that you can kind of look at and toy around with and try to trade for and get into that and invest in him. Now, what I want to get to in the beginning before I go off on the AFC West quarterback tangent is Patrick Mahomes. So the guy is established. You got 4 AFC title games in a row. You got 1 Super Bowl win, 1 Super Bowl loss, where he looked really bad in that Super Bowl loss, by the way. But now you have his wide receivers leaving him, and they're going to other teams, and they're just talking trash about him, which doesn't really make sense. Patrick Mahomes is really, really good. He's at a very, very high level. You put him up there with like Aaron Rodgers, and as far as play goes during the season, and if you're not looking at the history, you can put him in a class of a Tom Brady. Now, I'm not talking about career class. I'm just talking about who's going to be one of the top quarterbacks in the league. You can put him in a class with a Tom Brady. You can put him in a class with an Aaron Rodgers. Those are the two kind of heavy hitters. If you got more names, go ahead and just hit me on Twitter with your feedback. In fact, if you're going to disagree with anything I say on here, get at me on Twitter and go ahead and just blow me up and say that this take was bad and that's wrong and this and that. Now, I'm ready for all that stuff. I want to hear all that stuff, so go ahead and do that. But you got Patrick Mahomes, his receivers leaving him, and they're talking all this trash. So what I'm thinking is, like, let's look at Hill, for example. He leaves. He goes to Miami playing with Tua, it's another guy. I mean, he's more of like a Justin Fields, but a little bit more established. I give him a little bit more value than Justin Fields. But Hill goes over to Miami, and then he's saying that as far as power goes, Patrick Mahomes has the bigger arm, but as far as accuracy goes, Tua is better. I think he's just trying to pump his new quarterback up. It's really unfair to compare Tua to Patrick Mahomes. From a winning standpoint, point, from a talent standpoint, it's really unfair, and it's kind of just rude. But I mean, again, I'm not these guys. I'm not here saying this. If it was me, I wouldn't say anything negative about Patrick Mahomes. I mean, yeah, it's just a choice of words. So in that case, but if we look at Patrick Mahomes, if we look at the depth chart for Kansas City, what he has to deal with this year is that he's got receivers that he knows, as far as McCole Hardman, who'd been playing with him all that time, and he also has Juju Smith-Schuster to throw to, and Valdez-Scantling, who came from Green Bay. Schuster was able to establish himself a little bit over there in Pittsburgh. Of course, he did have Ben Roethlisberger throwing it to him in Ben's last years, where he wasn't performing, where he wasn't throwing, and he just wasn't the same guy who won those Super Bowls way back when. So, but he did have an opportunity to play with a great quarterback, or to learn from a great quarterback, even if the physical talent started to degrade from Roethlisberger over there in those last years. And Valdez-Scantling played with Aaron Rodgers. So, sure, we're moving from really consistent talent at the wide receiver position in Kansas City to a newer group, but at the same time, these guys know what good quarterback play looks like, and they know how to work in systems where the quarterback, and it's more of a throw first offense, and wide receivers have to catch, they have to get those 50-50 balls. Definitely these guys are going to be big assets for Patrick Mahomes, but his biggest asset, and here's where your guys' value comes in, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is the building block of Patrick Mahomes' success. I don't put it like that. I mean, he's a big part of the confidence for Patrick Mahomes. He's a safety belt. Patrick always knows where this guy's at on the field, and Kelce is really good at just grabbing those balls and bringing them in and moving the sticks and stuff like that. Stuff that Patrick needs to do. Now, as far as the season goes, you're going to have opportunities here as far as NFL moments goes with Travis Kelce, big time, because from a historical standpoint, he's breaking tight end records. We're talking like Tony Gonzalez stuff. He's breaking those kind of tight end records, and he's making plays in the postseason. Potentially, they could get back to the Super Bowl. It's going to be tough, but that could happen. So he has an opportunity throughout the entire season to make things happen like this. Now, the Week 1 matchup for Kansas City is Arizona. Arizona has problems of their own, and we can get into that. But I'm looking more at the opportunity here for Travis Kelce to step up in Week 1 and Patrick Mahomes to step up in Week 1 and say, you know what, even though my receivers left me, even though they were talking bad about me, I can still go out there and I can perform. So that's kind of Patrick's mindset, more or less, what he's going to get into, what he has to prove. I mean, everybody knows who he is, but people are going to throw shade at him. He's got to go out there and prove them wrong, and I'm more than certain that he's going to do that. As far as a value standpoint, though, the value of these guys it won't grow as rapidly as some of the other quarterbacks we spoke about earlier. So if you talk about a Justin Fields or a Trey Lance, it's a bigger risk, but it has a greater reward in the sense that their value can grow much more than Patrick Mahomes' value can grow right now. So you're looking at low risk over here with Patrick Mahomes because he's already established. You're looking at high value already set, and you're not looking at drops in values. If anything, you're looking at constant or a little bit of growth. Now, if Mahomes is able to go to another AFC Championship game, if he's able to go to another Super Bowl and win another Super Bowl, that's where your value starts to come in, because now you're separating him from an Aaron Rodgers. You're separating him from a Russell Wilson, guys who only won one Super Bowl. Even in this case, Aaron Rodgers went to one and won one, and Russell Wilson went to two and won one. And Wilson threw that interception to Malcolm Butler at the end of the New England Super Bowl. So, and since then, he hasn't been back. It's a tough game. It's tough to get back to the Super Bowl, but you expect that from great players. You don't, we're not talking about people, or if you want to talk about value and actual interesting moments. That kind of stuff is happening in the playoffs. That kind of stuff is happening in the Super Bowl. And it takes a player like a Patrick Mahomes, like a Tom Brady, to consistently put themselves in position to create big moments and live in big moments. And they're not scared of big moments. You know that. They're not scared of the tight games in the fourth quarter, especially not in the regular season, and especially not in the postseason. Now, they do have the problem that the Buffalo Bills are also in the AFC, and the Bills are not messing around. Absolutely not, especially after that disaster from the end of last season where they got marched on in 14 seconds. You know they had to sit bad in their stomach all off season long. They're ready for the Chiefs. So that's kind of a rivalry building up there. And if we see a matchup, I'll look at the schedule here a little bit later, get to you guys. If you see a matchup like this, Buffalo Bills and Kansas City Chiefs, then there's a lot of potential for moments here. What we're really going off of is reputation, stage. A regular season game can be big. If we look back at that Rams-Chief game a couple of years ago where both teams had super hot offenses, that was a big game. That's a Monday nighter that's, in the YouTube archives, and it's an epic, historic game, But it's rare for a regular season game to be like that. But if you were to have like a Bills-Kansas City Chiefs matchup in the regular season, and especially again in the postseason, that's where a lot of value, a lot of big moments are going to be coming. So we can also, getting away from the AFC West and talking still about Buffalo. Buffalo is going to open the season on September 8th in Los Angeles. So you have the Super Bowl champs against one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl this year. And the game intrinsically has value because it's the opening game of the season, because both teams are so good. You have Aaron Donald over there. You have Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, a lot of big names. But, what are we looking at when we're getting into NFL moments? Are we, of course we're looking at guys who are established. You want to get plays that have significance. You want to get players who are established, who have good reputations. But if you're looking from a perspective that you want to grow your portfolio, we kind of have to start looking in between the lines and seeing what players could potentially break out. Look at the start of Patrick Mahomes' career. He comes off, he sits for 1 year behind Alex Smith, then he comes out and he just absolutely explodes. So from a value standpoint, his value is very low when he starts his first game, and then instantly it just skyrockets. And that's something that, again, that could happen with a Trey Lance. It could happen with a Justin Fields. It could happen with a Zach Wilson. It could, not so much, but it could happen with a Baker Mayfield, though he would have to do a lot more. He's not really in that same boat, but he's down low on value and he has the opportunity to move up. A lot of these young quarterbacks, let's look at, we talk about that first game on Thursday night. It has an opportunity for some big moments. But that's because of the stage at this point too. And you have a lot of players, but think about this, they're going to be not growing as much in value as fast because they're already really established and you already have such high expectations of them that they're going to have to win Super Bowls to gain value. They're going to have to win Super Bowls, they're going to have to win MVPs, they're going to have to win Defensive Player of the Year, they're going to have to make that catch in the fourth quarter, with two defenders on them, reach over, grab a one-handed stag, something like that in order for it to be a really big moment. The bar's already set so high. The other opportunity we have here, again, it's not the best matchup, but you do have Denver and Seattle going at it. Seattle is kind of a joke at this point. When a team sucks, they call it rebuilding. That's kind of where Seattle's at right now. They're going against Denver. Denver needs to show me that they can play offense again. Ever since Peyton Manning leaves, they're just, they go through, I don't know, you can't even, how many quarterbacks was that? Like 9, 10, 11, some ridiculous number of quarterbacks. Peyton Manning leaves. Now they get Russell Wilson, which, and then we start to look back and it's like a trend for Denver. they get that good quarterback, and they always need like a top level Hall of Fame level quarterback in the backfield in order for them to make moves, make noise. Of course, also they had Von Miller back then. A really interesting player, Von Miller. Wins the Super Bowl MVP, goes to the Rams, wins another Super Bowl, makes significant contributions. So this guy, I really like him. He's with the Bills right now. So this is kind of an indicator. It was the same way with that wide receiver Samuel. He played 1 year with the Chiefs, won the Super Bowl, goes the next year with the Niners, and makes it to the Super Bowl. There's just some players that seem to be in the right place at the right time, and Von Miller, he can perform, but he's also in the right place at the right time. Yeah, but back to this Denver-Seattle game. So Seattle, I'm not looking, is Geno Smith going to be good? He's never had an opportunity to prove himself because he's been playing behind Russell Wilson. Is he going to be good? I don't care. I'm not, is Seattle going to be good? It doesn't matter. I doubt it. And if they are, it will be surprising. Denver has high expectations, but based off previous history, it's going to be tough for them too. I can't see bringing an old Russell Wilson in. I say old, he's like 34 or something like that. But, a guy who's been in the league a long time. He hasn't missed a lot of times, so he's taken a lot of beating. He's supposed to come in and save him. I got to see it first. And I've been down on Russell Wilson for the last couple of years just because his team hasn't been able to do what it's supposed to do. So there's potential there as far as, you have a backstory with Russell Wilson going against his old team. There's potential there for value long term if he's able to do something significant in that game. But here, when we talk about backstories and stories behind games that, storylines, it's kind of irrelevant in the long term while it's relevant in the short term. You're trying to market a game. You're trying to sell a game, trying to get people to watch a game, so you come up with these storylines. And some of them, especially in this first game where people are switching teams and going against old teams, you have these kind of storylines. But when we start getting into week 17, week 18, these storylines are going to die off. Now, one exception to the rule is, of course, Tom Brady going from the New England Patriots over to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and winning a Super Bowl in his first year. But you think about that. He spent 20 years with the New England Patriots, won 6 Super Bowls, goes to a new team and wins another Super Bowl. The backstory behind it is 20 years long. Russell Wilson's story, he spent his whole entire career with the Seahawks, and now he's going to go against the Seahawks, but he only won 1 Super Bowl over there. And in order to kind of match that story or make the backstory stick, he's got to win a Super Bowl in his first season over there, or in his second season, or he's got to win another Super Bowl. These stories only are relevant when people win Super Bowls. The victors get the spoils, the victors write history. These things will not be relevant. Baker Mayfield's story going against the Cleveland Browns in week 1 is not going to be important in week 7, not going to be important in week 6. It's a short little blip of value if he does something good. And I'm talking good, I'm talking like 4 or 5 touchdowns. I'm talking like rushing touchdowns. I'm talking, aesthetically pleasing football plays where he's jumping over piles, reaching out, grabbing for the pylon, stuff like that. You think of John Elway playing against Green Bay where he goes and trying to get that first down. He's hit by two Green Bay defenders and does a spin and gets the first down. That's the kind of stuff. Those are the kind of moments where it's really significant. And if you haven't noticed by now, I'm talking about high value stuff. And when we're looking at the NFL all day, there's a lot of stuff like reception or kickoff return or stuff like this. And the value on it is like $4 to $5 if we put a monetary value on it. And then you start kind of looking at the history pieces they had out there. I was just browsing the marketplace yesterday. You have a Marvin Harrison piece. Now, Marvin Harrison, we have Super Bowl champion, 1 time. He has a crazy career. Did he not have the record for most receptions in a season? I believe he did. He had to double check with me on that one. But in that case, Marvin Harrison, you can see why he has value. He's not playing anymore, so his cap's really set. He can't really prove himself anymore, but there's value there because of his significance, because of him playing, of course, with Peyton Manning and all those receptions, all those receiving yards, all those records that he set. There was value there. Another one I saw that was really interesting, Jamar Chase. And if you think about the Bengals, you haven't heard too much about the Bengals all offseason, but Joe Burrow last postseason was an absolute man. He showed up, he showed out, he came to play with, even though his offensive line was getting him sacked a whole bunch of times every game, he came to play, and his boy Jamar Chase was extraordinary, was a very, very good receiver. Now he still has space to go up, but that's going to be up to him to continue to progress, to continue to stay consistent and make big plays, make big catches. But I don't doubt he's going to do that. So if you're in on Jamar Chase, last year, I believe that was his rookie year. If you're in on Jamar Chase, I would hold him because there's still space to go up. And if he goes up, then also you're going to see a rise in Joe Burrow's value also. So those are two things to look out for on the outside. Other people, well, we did talk about the matchups today, but other people we can look at, like a Mac Jones in New England. He's kind of stuck because he's playing behind the Bills, so his opportunities are, in the playoff scheme of things, just going to be small, and he's in the shadow of Tom Brady, so it's going to be tough for him to really make any big moves or do anything to that extent, just because of the place he plays. And he did have a good first year for a rookie, and it's tough for a rookie to come in there and perform like that. But they really cut all ties with Cam Newton last year in the preseason. They just cut him and told Mac Jones, get out there, go play. And he did his best. He did a good job. He was winning games, which is always something you want to see. He made it to the playoffs in his first year as a rookie, so definitely added a lot of value to his name right there. Now it's up to him to say, okay, did you take the offseason to actually commit to playing football, to commit to being the best quarterback in the league, something that Tom Brady does? And it's just unfair. You can't compare anybody to Tom Brady. Let's just put that out in the first episode before I get off here. Tom Brady is the best. I would not be surprised if they drop the 5-year Hall of Fame requirements for this guy and just drop him into the Hall of Fame. If they gave him a golden jacket while he's still playing, it would not be surprising. I wouldn't be like, oh, that's rude. That guy's that good. And comparing anybody to Tom Brady is really unfair to Tom Brady because there's just no comparison. 7 Super Bowls, that's the standard. That's the gold standard. Listen, guys, today we talked about some players. We talked about some matchups in Week 1. Thank you, everybody, so much for listening in today. Thank you to the Party Mansion for setting up the opportunity to have this NFL podcast. If you guys have any questions to players, to teams, to matchups, anything you guys want to hear, go ahead and just tweet me, tag me on Twitter, and get at me with what it is you guys want to listen to, and I'll be sure to consider that when we get into the next podcast episode. Thanks again to RMT Books for providing the studio and the equipment and doing the production for this. I really want to thank you guys for listening in one last time, and enjoy your day. I'll see you next time.